Greetings survivors and friends, SHADOWFRAX here, and you know, sometimes you get what you asked for, sometimes you don't get what you asked for, and sometimes you get what nobody asked for, and you know this because you polled the entire community before making that assertion, but Rust keeps on giving regardless, and so it was that the industrial update was bestowed upon the players and the age of automation resulteth. If you weren't aware of all this, then first of all, where have you been hiding? I'd like to know because it sounds like a nice place, but secondly, don't worry, because here's an overview along with everything else that's new this month, including some rather interesting Rust stats. The industrial update aims to make crafting and storage more efficient while simultaneously giving you even more things to sort out, build and keep track of. It's very simple though when you break it down. First, anything you want to connect to the system must have a storage adapter glued to it. And items that this can be done to at the moment are tool cupboards, large and small boxes, all the furnaces, refineries, lockers, fridges, drop boxes and vending machines, but not mixing tables, which is a very sad state of affairs if you ask me, and means I can't rig one up to a solar panel to create a teas made for that essential morning brew. Next in line are conveyors, which require power and can shift any items they find from their input to output or be programmed only to shift certain ones and under certain conditions. Crafters can be attached to workbenches to automate crafting, although not any faster than you would. These also require power and can make stuff for you on demand, as long as the workbench is the right tier for it. Splitters and combiners do exactly what you'd expect them to, and that's about it. And you've got a nice new pipe tool, which you can't smack anyone with, sadly, but which lets you hook all of these things together in a choice of 4 sexy pipe flavors. You're also getting an electric furnace this month, which doesn't make charcoal because it's electric, duh, but it does smelt a little bit faster. That's the overview, and for more details I'd recommend looking through the blog, as I've kind of gone into detail on this stuff a number of times over the last few weeks. However, a couple of things to note about all of this. Due to certain things that would have been too much fun otherwise, pipes can't go through walls or vending machines, and you can only run them through doorways, windows, hatches, and deployables, such as doors, which, incidentally, you can place on top of pipes. This reminds me so much of the central heating system in my house. I'm forever tripping over those blasted things. Then that's the real world for you, I guess. As performance is always #1 priority, to maintain server performance, there are some limits in place to stop things from getting silly, such as a hard-coded 16 container input/output limit for each container. This means that a conveyor will only be able to see the first 16 containers it encounters in its network, but I'm sure that'll be plenty for most. There are also some limitations on how many items a conveyor can move in a single tick, and several convars, which you can see here, that can be used to control the speed and efficiency of industrial systems on your server. Of course, adding a system like this is one thing, letting players use and try to abuse it as much as possible is another thing entirely, and so ultimately it's all very much subject to change, depending on how well you do, but let me know in the comments if you think this is all a good addition, please. In other changes applied this week, code locks will now present you with different default options depending on the situation, and so when you first place one, you'll get change code to let you quickly set one. If you're authed on the TC but not on the lock, it'll say enter code, and if you're authed on the lock but the door's currently unlocked, then the first option will be to lock door. What a time to be alive. More variation in train wagon loot has arrived. Crates inside will have different loot layouts with varying qualities of contents, but overall the loot in these should be better now. Actually, joking aside, there is plenty of stuff happening to improve overall performance, and to summarize what was in this month's blog, water catchers and associated networks were congealing server performance somewhat, especially when they were in big operations, so a number of tweaks were made to their behavior to mitigate this. You can read all the juicy details here if you like. Unity was upgraded to 2021.3 for clients. Servers are lagging behind pending further testing, but this should open up the potential for some performance and visual improvements, hopefully. Sadly though, as a downside, you'll notice that borderless full screen mode has now been ripped out due to a bug that caused some pretty bad performance issues. Oh well, sorry if that's something you used. Multi-threaded networking for clients and servers is being tested too, and this will begin on selected official servers this month, although you can try it out now, just be warned. Pause the screen here to see the explanation of how, and some new client performance metrics are being pulled off internally to help the team see where improvements can be made, such as with the above-mentioned borderless full-screen mode. It's also interesting to see what sort of frames people are getting on average and what the best-performing hardware is, which has been shared with us this month. It seems that Rust is definitely CPU bottlenecked right now, with the caveat being not to go out and buy a new one expecting better performance, as it's all subject to change. But here are the results for for you to see, along with the same for GPUs. Feel free to pause here to analyze. There are also some fascinating pie charts which are enlightening. For instance, 75% of you peasants are running 16 gig or less of RAM. 73% of you are playing at 1080 and only 2.5% of 4K. And here is a breakdown of the most popular hardware being used. Not only but also, apparently 30% of you numpties are using motion blur, with hardly anyone using VSync and only 5% of players using SMAA. Again, some interesting stats here. And as for operating systems, Mac players continue to be special, making up a whopping 0.3% of the player base, and there are still 624 retro gamers using Windows 8. You legends! If the scale of this intimate knowledge Facepunch has on you wasn't enough, this analysis will be expanded to better see how you're playing the game, such as what the most popular weapon is on each day of a wipe, the win ratio of different weapon matchups, deaths per size of team, hourly loot per monument, and least used items, etc, etc, which will then be used to presumably improve your enjoyment. Oh yes, and Happis has gone bye-bye now, at least the official version. I know the community are not ready to let it go yet, and I'll be bringing you some news about this fairly soon, I hope. Also, there is going to be another custom map competition, so there will be such things as static maps still. The main reason for the decision to retire Happis officially was the amount of work needed to keep it up to date and on a par with procedural maps, which is the main focus after all. But of course, some of you will be in mourning, so you have my condolences. In works in progress, I know there's a lot going on, but as for exactly what we can expect next, we'll have to wait and see. Possibly, one of the next things will be a new attack heli for players. Think an upgraded minicopter with guns, and by the look of commits, it'll have a gun cam screen. So exactly what it'll look like and be able to do will be interesting to see. There's also a redesign of the outpost being made, along with a new nuclear missile silo monument and ferry terminal for the Nexus system, pets, building skins, remote-controlled drones and turrets, and all sorts of wonders that I'll keep you abreast of as they pop their heads out of the woodwork. Until then, those are the headlines. Please like and sub and follow me on my socials for notifications and streams, etc, etc. All links below. Thank you to my supporters for all they do to help me keep going, and I shall of course catch you very soon. In the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio. You legends!